Welcome to the Wheels and Beyond podcast. Today we are at the London Bicycle Café, here with Andrew Hunniford, who is the general manager of the London Bicycle Café and a lifelong Londoner who's passionate about cycling and active transportation. With a background in product management, he now helps people find the right bike for their needs. And as an avid rider himself, he commutes, shops, and adventures by bike while engaging in civic initiatives. But we're going to do things a little bit differently. One, I've typed my notes out via typewriter, so that's this paper here, and that's pretty cool. But two, we're going to actually stick to around 30 to 35 minutes. And three, I have about a 25-minute timer here that I'm going to click go on right now, and that is going to buzz in 25 minutes so that it'll warn us that our impending doom and the end of the podcast is on its way. So number 4, we're going to stick to one primary topic, but I'll be able to go on 2 side quests and only 2 using these Joker cards. So we're going really tactile today. Typewriter, Joker, and yeah. So actually, we already might be breaking the rules because of our topic today, which is bikes and buses, which is 2 things. But luckily, we've narrowed it down to specifically the economic argument for bikes and buses. So Andrew, you have been writing about this recently. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
It maybe is one topic, right? 2 halves of the whole, right? Or part of the big picture. Bikes and buses aren't just a fun alliteration. They're a great symbiosis between 2 sustainable transit systems that offer really cost-effective investment municipalities can make in transportation that's sustainable long-term and has all kinds of benefits for society. So no, I think bikes and buses are part of the big picture and they go hand in hand.
Okay, I'm going to have to use my Joker card already. Just to side quest real quick. It is still the same thing, but it's a deviation. The bike racks on the front of the buses.
Yes.
Do you use those? So I have routinely used those with my normal bikes, but I don't think, well, some bikes don't fit, but a lot of them do. And even this winter, I've seen so many people using them. It's really cool.
We got a term for it. It's the rack and roll, right? So I really, I do enjoy those. We do a winter bicycling clinic here. One of the pieces of advice that we offer is to align your bicycle route with a transit route. Should you run into any unfortunate circumstances, weather, flat tires, things like that, it's as easy as finding the next bus stop, waiting, racking your bike, and then rolling away.
Perfect. Maybe I should put that short out because I got a flat this summer and I was right next to Richmond and something. And I just hopped. It was a 5-minute walk over and then the bus happened to come right then and right on over there. And then Natalia GoPro'd me getting on and doing that because then she biked back and did her things. So yeah.
Yeah, bikes and buses, great friends. Transit routes are snowplowed as a priority. So it's going to give you a better road surface to adhere to if you are road cycling. And like I said, things get a little bit too hairy for you and you want to get out of there. Have a transit pass on you, have some bus tickets that you keep in your wallet for just such an occasion, and you still make it home on time, nice and safe.
I actually do exactly what you just said to do. I keep those tickets in my pannier or bike wallet, whatever, wherever I'm going. I always take those, just as that emergency thing. Yep. And then, nope, no more side quests. We're gonna stick on topic. Okay, so the economic viability, etc., of bikes and buses.
So, this comes to London Transit as a unique transit system compared to all of its peers, right? So London Transit puts out an annual report every year, right? And something that I look forward to and I read. Because I find it's full of some really interesting statistics. You'll compare it to cities like Kingston or Brantford or Oakville or Edmonton are in its peer groups or comparisons. So essentially bus-only transit systems that exist. What I find particularly interesting as the London transit system as an outlier, it is one of the most used per capita transit systems amongst all of its peers. It went from first to about second or third where it is currently. It's also the lowest in operating cost by a lot of amongst all of its peers. So as in terms of a transit system, right, you can imagine the average bus transit system costs about $8 a ride to operate. So every time somebody gets on it, unfortunately, there is a cost to that. It's about $8, right? Some of
That's to the system, not to the. We're not saying the ticket prices are $8. Just to confirm here.
not yet. So but unfortunately, that seems to be to where we're trying to go as a goal, right? So we break it down, right? So there's a pie chart to think about where it's like, yep, the ride cost $8, right? That's an average. In the London system, it's only about $5 in change, right? So we operate each ride significantly cheaper. And that has to do with, and the reason you drive that is because, again, per capita, our utilization is through the roof. People ride the bus in the City of London despite the service that they receive or the contribution they get from their municipality. Because the average municipality kicks in about $5, right, toward each one of those rides, right? So if it costs $8, the municipality pays $5. Some of it comes through gas tax, and the rest comes through fare. So the average fare contribution is about 30%. London gets close to 50%. Our municipal contribution per ride is $2.50. The average is $5. So the City of London, as part of a partner in this process, is contributing the least amongst all transit systems in Canada to its transit system from its tax revenue. So London Transit has one of the most used transit systems per capita. It is one of the most cost-efficient transit systems in the country, and our city contributes the least amount of money to operating it compared to all of its peers. So it results in fare-paying riders in London paying significantly more than any of their peer groups.
And why is it important to get it done? Because I was thinking this morning while writing that and typewriting that, I was like, I wonder if it would be like $1, how much more use it would get. Or I have heard that a lot of people said, actually, it's about the reliability, etc., that would make people ride more.
There's a really good example fairly recently. So, the municipality of Orangeville actually operates a free transit system, right? And they've
Wait, really? Orangeville?
Orangeville, Ontario rides. You can ride the bus for free. The fare box is closed. So they've gone to a system where, and what that's done, and there's some really good news pieces out there right now where you're seeing the mayor talk about the benefits of a transit system and how giving up on the fare and having the municipality invest in it saves them money.
Okay, that's cool. And I did not realize that Orangeville, of all places, did that. Okay, I'm flabbergasted. Continue, please. You're blowing my mind here.
Well, because it's a service, right? And it's a service with benefits, right? Is to you can't think about your transit system as a business that's supposed to return a profit. It doesn't work that way. No transit system on earth works that way. It's a service that your city or municipality should invest in, and as a result, will benefit from, right? Because if you think about, so if you were to make transit in London free, it would cost the city it wouldn't really cost, right? So we make about $40 million a year through that fare box. So you'd essentially be giving up that $40 million.
Now, was that revenue, or that's not profit, is it?
That's revenue.
Revenue.
Because it doesn't profit.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say 40 mil is fine, but that's just contributing. Okay, so that's just from the fare box. Go on.
So yeah, you give up your $40 million through that fare box kind of thing. And now that revenue is going to have to come from the city in order to continue to operate the system. And that's going to increase ridership. Now, you get some of that back because there's some return on investment right there. So every time somebody rides the bus in the province of Ontario, that ride is counted. And we get from the provincial government gas tax revenue per ride. So as riderships go up, even if the city has to cover the fare paying portion, they're able to recover another portion of it through gas tax revenue. Right now, London Transit stands out and is probably one of the leaders in gas tax revenue collection. About 10 to 15% of its funding comes through gas tax.
I did not realize buses had gas taxes. Those are bells in the background because we're at the cafe.
Ding, ding.
It was not busy. It is now busy. Here we have gas taxes. We have fares. How else are they subsidized?
Well, that's pretty much it. So you have your transit operating budget is going to be provided by municipal tax contributions. So, property owners pay taxes. Those taxes are collected by the city, and then the city hands that over to the London Transit Commission so that they can operate buses. Share of the pie chart, the City of London's contribution is about 30%. And that's where it puts it at, the lowest amongst its peers. It's dead last in municipal funding. It's getting about 40 to 50%, depending on the year, through the fare box, which makes it an outlier. A lot of the time, it's the inverse of that, where it's like, yep, the municipality contributes more than 50% of the operating budget through tax revenue, and the minority of its funding comes from fare box revenue. The average is probably about 30%.
So I was reading through some of your posts, your Medium articles. Yeah. That's a whole other topic I wanted to ask about, but I'm going to ask about the very specific line about the taxes down via investing in transit. So like cars are eating that pie chart that you've been talking about here, while other transportation options fight for the crumbs. So why is it important? Why is the City of London like a driving city? Or so people keep on saying, aka subsidized. When you subsidize something, ...
Yeah, you get, these aren't accidents, these are results, right? So that's where I talk about let's compare some of these things, right? Because you could say, $40 million, that's a lot of money kind of thing, right? We're investing $500 million a year in just road infrastructure. But then you could look at, we have $800 million a year as a police budget and $600 million a year for fire services, right?
And sorry, going back to that, was it $500 million for roads, you said? Or the road infrastructure?
$500 million is probably going toward roads. If I were to take a look at, or I'm trying to go from memory here, last of the budget kind of thing. You've got maybe $600 million for fire, and you've got $800 million for police. But think it through. How much of our police service is dedicated to policing the road network and responding to and dealing with vehicular collisions? How much of the fire department's time is spent essentially responding to and dealing with vehicle collisions? So that's where I really like, there's a report out of the capital region in Alberta, right? Where what it does is it breaks down all of these costs, and it's called the CRIS report. And it gives a really interesting analysis on what do accidents cost us as a society?
Collisions or accidents?
Collisions. Thank you. Thank you. See, even I, sometimes slip. What do collisions cost us, right? So you can estimate, and you could take a look at these charts and things like that in this report. But it's entirely possible that the City of London, or a city of our size, is spending about $2.5 million a day is what it costs society to deal with just traffic collisions, because people don't realize how expensive those are. You write off 2 cars, that money has to come from somewhere.
Everyone's complaining right now more than ever before about the premium increases. Both for house, which sometimes is involved with traffic collisions because people drive right into them, and then mostly about the auto, the auto insurance rising. Again, it comes from somewhere.
Yeah. So maybe you're going to see, there was a collision there and it took out a traffic light standard at a major intersection kind of thing. You're looking at tens of thousands of dollars in emergency response, tens of thousands of dollars to individual insurance policies. Those people might have ended up in the hospital, costing tens of thousands of dollars in hospital resources. And then the traffic light has to be replaced. And a lot of people don't realize that these things are also, in and of themselves, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of infrastructure and damage to it. It's easy to kind of estimate. You get into a snow event and accidents triple. So $2.5 million a day during a major snow event is $7 million a day, right? So we spend orders of magnitude more just dealing with collisions than we do, or we could potentially funding a no fare transit system, right? So we invest in things with negative income or negative outcomes that cost us more than they save and create more space than they overcome, and not investing in pedestrianization, transit systems, or cycling infrastructure that dollar for dollar, give us a bigger return on our investment. Is cycling infrastructure is incredibly inexpensive to maintain and create. Transit infrastructure compared to car infrastructure is incredibly efficient and cheaper to maintain per user than a single vehicle transportation system.
But Andrew, don't you have a reads notes here? Your van you drive. What? So can you explain to me? This is on my notes, but I'll potentially no. Okay, it's a half a joker. Can you explain to me why what you're saying is not that we entirely get rid of vehicle infrastructure? A lot of people jump on that and they're like, "What? I need my car because of XYZ." It's like, you know what? It's fine, but we can't be building everything for vehicles. We need the other options. So can you tell me a little bit about your family and your van? And you bike a lot, but
it's true. The reports are true. I own a minivan. It's a Dodge Grand Caravan. I call it the Millennium Falcon. And we like to think that we use it more practically and tactically. This is where I like to compare Ontario to maybe Germany, right? It's hard to make the argument that, we're going to be Amsterdam, that we're going to be Holland, that we're going to be this bicycle utopia. But some of the more interesting things that I've learned during the mobility master plan sessions is that I think over 60% of all of the car trips taken in the city of London were like less than 3 kilometers.
That stat is mind blowing. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So, Germany is, they have a robust automotive manufacturing industry. Okay. Like Ontario, checks notes. They have winter. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. They have winter. They have an extensive highway network, and they have a high percentage of vehicle ownership. But they would be embarrassed to drive that car 3 kilometers to school or to the grocery store. They'll make other choices. So they still own vehicles. They still use vehicles. They just use them incredibly differently than we do. Because we've designed an environment, unfortunately, that prioritizes the vehicle above all else, and we haven't given equal investment or opportunity into the alternatives. So that's really what we're talking about, is if you want to have a better driving experience, you want cycle tracks so cyclists aren't in your way. You want a better bus transit system to remove unnecessary car trips from the road, so that when anybody chooses to use a vehicle for the right application, they're able to do so much easier and much more conveniently when they're not burdened by all kinds of people using it just because they have to, because they haven't been given the alternative.
Yeah. When you see a bus, especially during peak hours, and it has usually it's, let's say, I don't know, in my mind I have 28, but like 30 people, let's say, or above 20. That is 20 to 30 vehicles off the road, because most are single occupancy. Let's be real here.
Yeah. So you'll get, even not the double bus, like a standard London Transit bus kind of thing, at capacity will have in excess of 75 people on it kind of thing. So to put it in this is where we can get into like size and just how bad of an investment building infrastructure for single occupancy vehicles is, right? I always like to use the example of, I used to work at 275 Dundas in the TD Canada Trust Towers there, right? There's 3 levels of underground parking, which is fairly typical of like an office structure like that kind of thing. But once you go through...
Is this downtown? Just double checking.
It's downtown.
Okay.
Dundas and Wellington, 275 Dundas.
There we go. Okay.
3 levels of underground parking, 2-year wait list to get access to it. Why? Because only 65 cars fit in that underground parking garage. There's 1 room in that underground parking garage that is set aside for bicycles. As the bicycle storage facility, that 1 room holds 75 bikes, or 1 busload of people, right? So a busload of people is the same amount of people as 3 levels of underground parking. kind of thing, right? One of these things costs hundreds of millions of dollars to construct and tens of millions of dollars to maintain on a regular basis. That's where we talk about that return on investment. So like investing in transit is, you could be stuck in transit or you're not stuck in traffic. You could be part of traffic on Wonderland Road, for example. And, from your perspective, you could see a line of cars, stretching over the Guy Lombardo Bridge and what seems like back forever. And maybe you're stuck there and you also see a bus, right? And it's like you could look at it as to like almost a kilometer of congested road is the equivalent of the number of people that would fit on that one bus, right? It's just a much more efficient use of our space and our resources. And if we invested in a way that made it as convenient as we've made the single occupancy vehicle, well, then I think people would choose it if it was given the priority that it deserves, and then we would all benefit.
I finally figured out my second Joker play. My wild card for this is the last mile problem. So when you're getting to and from buses or transit or anything else, trains, it's always difficult to get there unless you're really close. And that's where transit villages come in and the densification around those transit corridors, etc., which can be done really well. But I have been very interested. I got an electric scooter. Since then, I have sold it because just the bikes are so much better. But the scooter we got specifically so that we could use it with buses. Because you just fold that up, like you scoot. It doesn't have huge amounts of range compared to an e-bike. Actually, debatably, the smaller ones you get, the lighter they are. So you only need a few kilometers of range with them. In worst case, you walk with them. But if you can get like the lowest kilometer range with this scooter that you, if you're gonna like make commuting by bus, the way you're gonna do your commute, you get a scooter, or you can walk, because we lack exercise in North America and around the world, so you could just walk. But let's say the scooter, because it's so much faster, you do that 1 kilometer, which is a decent walk realistically. Anyways, you do the scooter, you fold it up, you get on the bus, and then you go to the other side, and maybe it's a 3 kilometer commute or something, which is actually, I don't know. I don't know where you work, but that's a way to make it work. If like the majority of your commute, it's a straight line and you can just chill while, let's say, the bus is stuck in traffic because let's say it's not BRT, etc., which is a whole other thing. But that's one way to get around it. Otherwise, yes, walk more.
But the BRT presents that fantastic opportunity for bikes and buses to converge again, right? Because unfortunately, we only built one of the routes, right? So we're in and of itself for kind of covering that longer distance, right? So, I live near White Oaks Mall, right? As to, White Oaks, right?
Represent.
And yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity because I have a folding bicycle, right? So I have a really convenient folding bike, right? So maybe I do need to get further east into London, stay at Fanshawe College, somewhere in that area, where I want to reach downtown faster, right? Then I'd be able to potentially bike myself, kind of thing. I'm able to really quickly just kind of zip over to the mall. I could get on the rapid transit system there, and that's going to get me downtown in minutes, right? Because the promise here is that it has a prioritized lane, and that it's going to run in 10-minute increments, right? Which now, and that's the goal for so much of the transit system, right? And we circle all the way back around to what can we get if we invested the fair share that the London transit system has been due for so long into that system. If our municipality finally started contributing just on level with its peers, what kind of transit system could we have? And yeah, you'd find that we would be able to add capacity and routes and increase frequency. If you can get to that magical 10-minute number, what it means is that I can go out to a major road without having to go through a complex planning scenario in order to reach my destination. If I can reliably know that a bus comes every 10 minutes, I could go to a bus stop and just assume that I've either just missed one or I'm just about to see the next one. That, on average, I'm only going to wait about 5 minutes, right? That's where it kind of then puts it on par in terms of convenience and offering you the same level of security or lack of anxiety that you would get typically from having to choose a transit system compared to my vehicle, right? The vehicle gives you the illusion of control, right? I can decide when I'm going to leave and I can estimate when I'm going to arrive without accounting for traffic. But what we think is that
the
if
timer, we're at 25 minutes.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, without accounting for traffic, which when you're on a bus, you still want to get to where you're going on time to work, let's say, but it is a much more relaxing experience where you can just relax. You don't have to have your foot on the gas and then the brake and repeat that a few times.
The BRT will deliver that system for us, right? And cycling infrastructure delivers you a reliable system as well that you can account for because it's impervious to traffic. So yeah, again, invest.
All right. So with the 25-minute mark there, we're going to finish this up. But we got through everything I wanted to talk about for the most part. I wanted to just call out the millions versus billions line that you had in one of your articles. And there was a 2,740 years at the same rate, ...
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
you have that there.
The disparity is staggering. If we think of $1 million as a small sum that could be spent just 3 years by using $1,000 a day, $1 billion represents a much larger scale. It would take 2,740 years to spend at the same rate.
And so what, in reference to what specifically?
So that's where we get into we could call out specific projects, right? It's Adelaide Street Underpass is one that I'll hammer on, right? Because it cost $90 million, right? So the Adelaide Street Underpass cost $90 million to save a small group of people within an isolated geographic area a couple of minutes a few times a day. Right, that's what we're willing to spend on that. But then there's cycling infrastructure projects, that cost a fraction of that serve much larger user bases and over a larger area that would scale up to where $90 million would build us a cycle track network that would cover the entire city. Right, you could have better cycling infrastructure citywide for $90 million if you decided to spend that kind of money and invest in cycling infrastructure. Or it would give you free transit for 2 years, right?
Oh my goodness, I didn't think of it that way. I don't know if you mentioned the free transit option on your article there, but the cycling infrastructure, you have a great breakdown. Maybe I'll link that specific post. I don't know in the future if it'll always be linked, but I'll put that in the description because there's breakdowns. I think it was Vancouver or Victoria, BC.
Yeah, Vancouver, so Dunsmuir Street, right? So the total cost of the project, this is an expensive project, is $905,000 for 0.8 kilometers. But that represents a fully built out bi-directional cycle track that's incorporated into a bus route, right? So it has the expensive pieces, right? It has to account for, bus users crossing the cycle track. So it has elevated crossings there. It offers fully built out curb protection, concrete infrastructure, top of the line, right? So you're looking at about $1,000 or $1,132 a meter. Right. But, compared to a road network, right, that's peanuts, right? Roads are tens of thousands of dollars per meter, right? $90 million for one underpass kind of thing, right? Hamilton, Cannon Street, right? Total cost is a $460,000 project for 3 kilometers, right? So this comes in on kind of the lighter side, where it's what they used is more temporary solutions. So planter type dividers and more plastic infrastructure, but still offering actual separation for cyclists and road users, right? It cost $154 a meter, right? This is $154 a meter. That's what it costs.
And it's still good. You mentioned the concrete dividers and barriers and lifted everything because of buses for the other one. This one, you still get not necessarily bollards, but the flexi posts. Is that where you kind of...
Yeah, so you get flexi posts and planters. So the Hamilton Street project on Cannon Street consists of flexi posts and planters, right?
And because we're in the winter and everything, I think you had a great point, and we're going to wrap up probably right after this. I'll ask you for final thoughts, but the planters allow for like flexibility, right? You can move them around, and I think that's what you covered. And I really liked that. It made a good point. And we have planters that we move on Dundas Street here in London, like for the winter. I guess plowing is probably a thing. I know some people are not necessarily happy that they get moved, but at least
I think the planters on Dundas in front of the Delta are actually still there on the north side year round. I'm pretty sure. There's enough width there. They've been clearing that with regularity. And they've maintained some of that infrastructure quite well. Right?
Yeah, I got here via Dundas today. It was all nice and plowed. Even though there was a bunch of construction, it was closed off to vehicles. I just snuck right on by on a plowed bike lane, which was great.
That's one of, there you go, return on investment, right? It's really easy to come up with even temporary accommodations for cyclists where it can cost a lot to accommodate a road user because you have to account for, a 1-ton vehicle carrying a single person in it kind of thing. Versus like you can pave, a piece of boulevard or something like that to accommodate a cyclist relatively inexpensively. It just kind of gets lost within the entire construction budget and still move volume of users through it, right? But bikes just make an excellent, efficient use of their space.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Because we're about to wrap up, and I think we're coming in right around the 35-minute mark. So hopefully it's right around there.
I'm trying to dispel the myth that London is a car driving city because the reality is, and based on evidence, is that London is a bus riding city. We are the #1 per capita transit system amongst all of our peers, despite the fact that it has the lowest amount of municipal funding. And it is one of the most efficient systems out there. So all I'm asking is the city to invest in its transit system on average with the rest of its peer groups. And what you would see is an explosion of utilization because the service would come up to meet that already existing demand. We're losing this fight because we've been underfunding this system, whereas there's an opportunity to invest in it and get a higher return than anybody else is currently experiencing. It's a great investment opportunity for the City of London.
Okay, final question this time. For councillors or other people who might be deputy mayors who might want to come on this podcast after I say this, maybe not, we'll see. No, but they say that, like, how are we, the city, putting so much towards the LTC, and like, what are they doing with the money, et cetera, et cetera? I probably botched that, but can you elaborate on what you elaborated on in your article?
You've put too much of a burden on fare-paying ridership to the detriment of ridership. So eventually you're going to break this model to where you've increased fare so much that it's going to become unpalatable. And then you're going to see people stop riding. And that is a death spiral because of how much of its revenue it gets through ridership right now. So when you compare the last two annual reports, you saw that. So you saw the percentage that fare-paying riders contribute to the system increase almost 6%, from 33% to 39%, I believe, kind of thing. So they had to come up and meet their contribution kind of thing, but we didn't see a similar increase or an in-kind increase from the city in terms of investment in the system.
And just gonna close it off with this. When you raise fares, it disproportionately affects those of lower income because you're now burdening those who are paying the fares routinely, and it's a bit less socialist. And if you don't know what that term means and are conflating it with another thing that might start with a C, it is not the same thing. But you do want to have it so the fares are cheaper, utilization is higher, and more people use it. And as you were saying about the gas tax at the top of this podcast, and all of the other things that go into this, higher utilization is just better overall, period. There's just...
Higher utilization of your bus service will save you money on vehicular investment that you have to make, and it's going to recover more funds in terms of gas tax contributions, which comes through car owners, right? The average price of a new car right now is $65,000 kind of thing. People don't take the bus necessarily right now because they want to take the bus. They take the bus because they can't afford anything else, and they have to. But I would love to see an investment that would change that. I would love people to choose to take the bus if the service can meet their needs and those demands.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you very much. Let me do my final read off here, which I finally have. Thanks so much for listening in on our conversation. You can support more of these by heading on over to my Patreon. Links and stuff in the description. But otherwise, look up bendurham.ca for everything you might ever need to be directed to. So thanks for watching. Bye.